4th level warrior. Hawthorne followed the bloodstains all the way. It wasn't that he didn't want to run, but his physical strength was completely depleted, and he couldn't run even a bit. So, he can only come over by walking, and also recover some physical strength along the way. However, soon he discovered that he didn't seem to need to be in such a hurry. The night was so quiet that the screams of the people killed by Yuta could be heard from far away. He just needed to follow those screams to determine Yuta's location. Confirmed this, his mood calmed down. He walked slowly, recovering his physical strength, while approaching the battlefield. However, as he moved towards the port, the warring factions were also converging towards his direction. Bang! Ah! A sudden scream of a woman came from the corner of the intersection ahead, followed by a tall figure stumbling backwards. Hawthorne quickly stopped in his tracks, focused his gaze, and then his eyes showed a slight surprise. Amazonian people. Is it true that the Amazon Fisheries Company is now at war with the Shana Guild? He was not sure, but then he saw a burly man swinging a giant hammer. With one step forward, the hammer fiercely smashed onto the woman's head. Dong! Another muffled sound. The woman had no way to defend herself. Her head exploded like a watermelon, and then her body fell to the ground, already dead. Hawthorne witnessed a person being killed, and suddenly, he felt his blood boiling and his blood pressure almost reaching its limit. Is this the real murder scene? 2. He felt his heart pounding like thunder. In the next second, the burly man slowly turned his head and looked at him. Hawthorne only just realized at this moment that the other person had only one eye, with a fierce expression, clearly having bloodlust. He quickly took a half step back, lowered his center of gravity, assumed a fighting stance, and cautiously watched the other person. And on the other side, the Cyclops saw him and immediately tightened his grip on the heavy hammer in his hand, his muscles tense, watching him warily. White hair, very young, handsome appearance, dressed in cheap clothes, holding a magic book. If the characteristics match, he is the magician that the scattered forest invited. Damn the Suntalan society, always causing trouble at times like this. He had long known that the root cause of tonight's chaos was the retaliation of the scattered tower against their Shanasar guild. So obviously, this mage is here to attack them. Take care of him first. At this thought, he immediately let out a low roar. Don't come over, go support the commander. You won't be able to handle it here. As a level 4 warrior, he has participated in large-scale guild battles in other areas, following the high-ranking members of the guild. He has personally witnessed magicians and even fought against a few with his heavy hammer. Although those were large-scale team battles, he had many people helping him by his side. But this was enough to dispel the charm of the mage profession in his heart. At least he would no longer be terrified just because of the opponent's reputation. At the same time, he is also well aware that ordinary people are of little use when dealing with mages. Having them come over will only cause chaos. The only ones who can solve the problem are themselves. Across the street, Hawthorne listened to the distant screams, knowing that Yuta was nearby and he couldn't retreat. He immediately frowned and muttered to himself, trouble. However, he didn't waste any time and raised his hand. A circular magic halo appeared in mid-air, followed by an invisible energy beam shooting out. The one-eyed dragon twisted his body and tilted his head, but his magical attack failed in an instant. Then, the muscles in his legs suddenly exerted force, and he charged like an angry bear. Hawthorne also took 2 steps back, then unleashed another magical blast. However, the one-eyed dragon sidestepped and easily dodged it, then accelerated again, smashing his chest with a heavy hammer. Hawthorne didn't dare to delay. He quickly crossed his arms in front of his chest, while chanting a spell, shield. Bang! With the same 2 points of mana consumption, mage armor can provide protection equivalent to chainmail armor and last for up to 8 hours, while shield spell compresses all the energy within 6 seconds. So you can imagine, in this moment, how powerful its protective force can be. An invisible shield appeared, blocking this attack. The mark of the sword's protection shattered, and the force field of Igasis' armor immediately counterattacked, sending a strong chill along the giant hammer, climbing up the Cyclops' arms. In an instant, his 2 arms were frozen white, as if dead. However, even so, the tremendous force still struck, and Hawthorne's small body couldn't withstand it, taking several steps back before barely stopping. Still too weak, even though I am the spellcaster myself, but my physique is too weak, it will still seriously hold me back. Hawthorne couldn't help but sigh in his heart. But as soon as he stopped, he didn't dare to delay any longer. He held the magic book and depleted the energy on it, unleashing the thunderclap wave. Boom! With a loud bang, the entire port area could clearly hear it. The powerful force struck, and instantly, even the one-eyed dragon couldn't resist. Its body flew backwards. Phew, safe now. Hawthorne breathed a sigh of relief, with beads of sweat forming on his forehead. However, in reality, despite the powerful and heavy blow from that guy just now, he didn't actually get hurt at all thanks to multiple layers of protection. He then added sword blade protection, false life, and the protection of the Aegis of Aegiscythe to himself, and his mana instantly bottomed out. However, he remained calm, knowing that as long as he confronted this one-eyed dragon for a little while, his mana would naturally replenish in a few minutes. Ahead, the Cyclops stood up again, gripping his heavy hammer. Despite his arms turning blue from the cold and taking a powerful thunder wave attack that sent him crashing hard, as a warrior 2 levels higher than Hawthorne, he stood up as if nothing had happened, full of energy. At the same time, he sneered at Hawthorne and mocked, "Your magic power won't last much longer, will it?" Hawthorne also sneered, "Dealing with you is more than enough." Speaking, he became even more cautious, guarding himself carefully, estimating the time and how much of his magical power he had recovered. "Oh, then let's give it a try." Cyclops lowered his center of gravity, assuming a stance like a fierce tiger, while continuing to exert mental pressure on Hawthorne with his words. "Don't think that being a mage makes you great. Guys like you, I've killed not just 10, but 8. I'm going to smash your bones one by one and squeeze out the marrow inside." However, at that moment, a sudden scream came from afar. "Quick, get away. The monster is heading towards you." Instantly, the one-eyed dragon turned his head, his expression dramatically changed. "What?" Then he saw a huge monster, with a body covered in anguished faces, like a nightmare, rushing towards him. Suddenly, he was almost scared out of his wits. How could this happen? Wasn't this guy taken to the Amazon people's side? Why did he suddenly run so far and charge towards me again? Chapter 42 Dawn of Counterattack. On the edge of the port, still worried that the monster's attention would once again turn to her, Commander Kentz of the Shanasar Guild remained cautious and vigilant of the enemy's movements. However, what he never expected was that the monster suddenly abandoned all its targets here and turned around, running wildly towards another direction. What happened? He gazed into the distance, only able to see his most capable subordinate, the one-eyed dragon, who seemed to have been crushed by the witch and is now in an unknown state of life or death. And in the distance, there is another figure, with white hair and small stature, relative to himself, running for his life. What is the monster chasing after, that white-haired person? Who is he? He was unsure, but at this moment, the biggest threat had already moved away. He then suppressed these strange thoughts and retreated with his subordinates, keeping a cautious distance from the Amazon women, standing alert. And then, when he lowered his head and saw headless bodies scattered all over the ground, suddenly, he felt his heart bleeding too. Heavy losses. Not only did I lose the goods, but I also lost so many subordinates. If this continues, I really won't be able to explain to my superiors. He really wants to break through the blockade of the Amazon women and rush into the harbor to check if his goods are in those containers. However, glancing at the thugs behind him, from the expressions of survival on their faces, Kentz knew that their morale had already collapsed. It was no longer possible for them to follow him and launch a new attack. People's hearts cannot be violated. This time, the goods were lost, at most it's just a loss of some money. But if the subordinates suffer losses or feel discouraged, how long will it take for one's own influence to recover? He is a powerful warrior, no doubt, but only serving as a strong fighter for the guild, the treatment he receives naturally cannot compare to that of being a leader. Therefore, in the end, he could only look up at the sky with resentment, then turned his head and angrily shouted, "Retreat!" On the other side, Amazon executive Porter also noticed that the attention of that huge monster was unexpectedly drawn to a young man with white hair, which greatly surprised her. She continued to be vigilant about the movements on Kent's side, but then she discovered that the other party was actually planning to retreat. Okay, that's fine. Although we couldn't kill Kent's, we still dealt a heavy blow to that guy. Moreover, tonight's losses are still within an acceptable range. It's time to cut our losses in a timely manner. Amazon Fisheries Company is a legitimate company, so they cannot kill people recklessly like the Shanasa Guild. At the very least, they need to have a plausible excuse that can pass scrutiny. And now, with this monster, whether it's the deaths of so many people or the losses of so many female warriors, all of it can be blamed on her, and no one will come to hold themselves accountable anymore. Thinking this way, she raised her left hand and shouted, "Let's retreat too." The female warriors then began to withdraw one after another, leaving the bodies of their comrades to be handled by the company's undertakers. Soon, there was not a single living person left in this area, only hundreds of severed heads on the ground, coagulated dried blood, and more corpses. However, these scenes, no matter how terrifying, are now unappreciated. Because the only living person at the scene now, Hawthorne, is being chased by Yuta, his soul scattered. "Damn, weren't you quite far away just now? How did you suddenly notice me?" He didn't know, but now, his mana points haven't fully recovered, so he can only run. But he also knew that this was not a solution. If he continued to run like this, it would only be a dead end due to his insufficient physical strength, so must fight back. Calm down, Hawthorne, haven't you already planned your way all along? Don't panic, hold on a little longer. Once your mana is fully restored, you can find an opportunity to purify her. With this thought in mind, he ran, turning corners, trying to create distance between himself and Yuta, buying himself more time, while casting defensive spells all over his body. Soon, the spells covered his whole body, and his mana slowly began to replenish. However, his physical energy was rapidly depleted, and his lungs became painfully close to exploding. Whether it can be done or not depends on this action. Turning another corner, Hawthorne leaned against the blood-soaked wall, listening to the distant growls and clashing of metal behind him. Taking a deep breath, he mustered his courage and whispered, "Shield," before swiftly turning around with his shield raised. Then, in a daze, he saw what seemed to be a guillotine ahead, with a sharp, enormous blade hanging above it, and his own neck right below it. This is Yuta's attack mode, she wants to cut off her own head. It's now. Even though his eyes were deceived by illusions, his consciousness remained somewhat clear. He reached out and grabbed the base of the guillotine, letting out a low roar, "Purify." Buzz. A milky white light shines again, instantly enveloping Yuta's body. The surging power flows into his body along with the white light, and in an instant, Hawthorne feels all fatigue vanish from his body. Ah! What a wonderful feeling, just like when I first purified Heidi. Ah! Yuta let out a piercing scream, and then the blade of the guillotine fell abruptly. Dang! Bang! In an instant, the layers of protection formed by his shield spell, blade barrier, false life, and the armor of Aegis's all shattered, as the blade landed on the back of his neck, causing him intense pain in an instant. Dash! He couldn't help but let out a muffled groan, watching the purifying milky white light envelop Yuta, but still unaware of how much longer it would take to complete, while the guillotine was raised high again, about to fall for the second time. Cannot wait, if I continue to stay here, I will lose my mind. At this thought, he quickly let go and turned around to continue running wildly. He feels very good now, his heart is not in a panic, his lungs are not hurting, and all the soreness in his muscles has disappeared. He feels that running another 5 kilometers now would not be difficult at all. On the other hand, Yuta, although still fierce, is noticeably slower than before. Sure, here is the translation. Indeed, this so-called purification is actually robbing her of her power, right? With this in mind, he then took out another magic book and ran while casting a healing spell on himself. The intense pain in the back of his neck disappeared, the wound healed, and in an instant, he was back to his full strength. At this thought, he couldn't help but feel excited. Very good, the effect is very significant. If we continue at this pace and purify her a few more times, we will be able to firmly subdue Yuta. Fortunately, tonight's witch night lasts a full 13 hours, so there is still plenty of time. The slum is also large enough to allow oneself to slowly engage and delay with her. Don't be fooled by my current disheveled appearance, in fact, the advantage is on my side now. He continued to run wildly, pulling Yutala, trying to wear down her strength with time. Chapter 43, Turn of Events. Hawthorne frantically fled in the alleyways and corridors. However, in the airspace he had just escaped from, two tall and thin figures wearing black windbreakers were suspended in midair above the rooftops. They each held a book and muttered to themselves, recording something on it. It can be confirmed that there is a significant conflict between the people under the Castellant family and the Amazonians. It is anticipated that their actions in the Southern Harbor District will face major obstacles. The Castellant family has been inefficient in their operations, and the Phantom Mage's armed guard has been confirmed missing before reaching the port. We need to reconsider the capabilities of the Castellanti family and the future benefits they can bring to us. The two of them quickly recorded a series of content like this. Although the wording and sentence structure were different, the meaning was more or less the same. After recording all of this, they considered their work complete. Afterwards, they turned their gaze back to the battlefield below, specifically on Yuta and Hawthorne. Upon seeing him desperately fighting and purifying Yuta with that milky white radiance, these two individuals were instantly astonished, with one of them even exclaiming, "What kind of power is that?" "I don't know, let me see," another person said, then raised their hand and made a few simple gestures. After reciting a few short spells, a dazzling blue light suddenly radiated from their eyes. Actually, if he is willing to spend more time, create a more complex set of handprints, and recite longer incantations, it can be effective in saving mana consumption. However, just like Hawthorne on this night, who could continuously replenish his mana, now these two people also have no need to worry about their own consumption. So, the blue light in his eyes fell on Hawthorne, and after a moment, he couldn't help but exclaim, "It seems to be some kind of unique energy. I can't understand it, it should be a power inherent in his bloodline." The other person was immediately very surprised. "Even you can't understand it? It seems that this human being really has some special bloodline." Speaking, he couldn't help but become more active in his thoughts. Should I help him? Judging by his appearance, he must have very little mana left. This is a reasonable guess. They have been observing below, but until now, Hawthorne has not yet used a second circle spell. And this indicates that his caster level should be very low, having just experienced so many intense battles, so his mana should already be depleted. After a pause, the person continued, "I think that, based solely on his talent and lineage, he is very suitable to be our partner in the material world. What do you think?" They are messengers from the 8th level of the 9-layered hell, two demon descendants with noble bloodlines. They have come to the material world this time to assess the true working abilities of their old partners and to find a new spokesperson. On that day, as they coincidentally brushed shoulders in the slums, both of them were already captivated by Hawthorne's extraordinary charm. They felt that this human had some potential, and if nurtured properly, could possibly become a valuable ally to them. Just that day they were busy inspecting the abilities of their old allies, so they didn't pay much attention. Unexpectedly, they could still meet here today. "I think it's great," another person grinned. "Besides, capturing such a powerful monster, Lord Mephistopheles will surely be very pleased. He can't hold on much longer. Let's go, let's take action." "Old method?" "Well, the old method. Move faster, if we delay any longer, the person with the black cane might arrive." After reaching an agreement, they immediately began to take action. One of them started performing a set of intricate and complex hand gestures, while reciting long and obscure incantations. And another person, who was close to Hawthorne's right above, recited a short incantation. On the ground, Hawthorne estimated the time, and then recited an incantation. Just as he had just put on the false life again, he suddenly felt his feet stumble, and his whole body uncontrollably fell forward. Pong! His body fell heavily to the ground. Luckily the dirt road was not hard, so he didn't hurt himself. But the consequences of this fall are very serious. and behind, Utah is already within reach. Damn it, how did I make such a mistake at this time? Immediately, his heart was filled with regret, but now it was too late to regret. Yuta was already close at hand, and illusions began to appear before him again. A massive guillotine fell from the sky. Hawthorne's heart jumped to his throat as he stepped back, hastily reciting the incantation, shield. Buzz. Bang. In an instant, a protective shield formed, and at the same time, the guillotine fell. The protective magic on his body shattered completely, and a sharp pain surged from his thigh, causing him to let out a muffled groan, ugh. Fortunately, he has already delayed enough time. Otherwise, if this shield spell hadn't been cast, those 2 legs would probably have flown out directly. However, even so, the intense pain coming from his legs made Hawthorne realize one thing clearly: he couldn't run anymore. The original plan has completely failed because of this fall, and now he no longer has any qualifications to continue dragging on. Is it true that I am going to die at the hands of Yuta? No, I absolutely refuse to accept this outcome. Fighting with her. Purify. He roared angrily, then reached out and touched the guillotine that had transformed. Suddenly, a strong milky white radiance enveloped Yuta's body. Buzz. Roar. The purified white light penetrated into the body of this colossal monster, staining her soul. Suddenly, Yuta's body trembled. The chaotic magic from beyond the world within her body was rapidly dispersed, and the soul that had become uncontrollable and mad due to contamination also began to regain consciousness, as if just awakening from a coma, ignorant and confused. How did I end up here? Why did I have to kill so many people? Good emptiness, I really want to throw myself into my master's arms. Ah, master, he is right in front of me. Wait, that's not right. When the last trace of chaotic magic pollution is cleared, Yuta's confused consciousness suddenly awakens. How could I have such thoughts? Yes, it's him. He is altering my consciousness. He wants to turn me into a weak and ridiculous fool. Give me death, go die for me. The big sword swung again, but Yuta immediately realized with horror that his power was rapidly draining, and its strength was barely a fraction of what it used to be at its peak. This person, not only is he altering my consciousness, but also plundering my power. Swoosh. She exerted all her strength to swing the guillotine down, but at this moment, even Hawthorne, who was injured in the leg, could easily flip backward and effortlessly dodge Yuta's attack. Hawthorne took a deep breath, steadied himself, disregarding the injury on his leg, and looked up in astonishment at what lay ahead. Yuta's power, has it become so weak? Good opportunity, so next, it's time to completely purify her. He thought this way, endured the severe pain, stood up, and was about to step forward to fight her again. Then, he saw that the witch actually took a step back, and then suddenly turned around and rushed into the distance. Immediately, Hawthorne stood still in place. Really? She ran away. Chapter 44 The Devil's Apostle. Yuta has regained his sanity, now it would be foolish not to run. She has clearly realized that the elderly man with white hair has the ability to alter the consciousness of witches, and it is very likely that Heidi has fallen into his hands by accident. And now she is extremely weak, unable to fight at all, so the only choice is to escape quickly. Escape to a place, hide, wait for the night of the witch to pass, restore my power to its peak, and then go find him to settle the score. Yuta swore that he would make him experience the most painful and terrifying death in the world. With this thought in mind, she dashed forward with her massive body. Behind her, Hawthorne was dumbfounded, but soon he also reacted and took steps to chase after her. But just as he took a step, the intense pain from his leg injury caused him to stumble, followed by an angry curse under his breath. Damn it! But there was no other choice. He could only take out his spell book and attempt to cast healing spell on his wound, in order to regain his ability to run. Darn it, my mana hasn't recovered yet. After trying 2 or 3 times, he still couldn't cast this spell. He could only curse under his breath and then sit back down on the ground, avoiding any vigorous movements that could aggravate his wounds, while patiently waiting for his mana to replenish. Not urgent, wait for at most 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, she can't run too far. He gritted his teeth and waited anxiously. At this moment, in the sky, 2 tall and thin figures wearing windbreakers couldn't help but exclaim, "How could it be that I misjudged him? Is this person actually a highly skilled spellcaster who has never studied spells beyond the second circle? He has been watching the battle in the sky for a long time. Although he didn't count carefully, even by his estimation, the boy has already used 7 or 8 ring spells. Even if he carries certain treasures, at this point, his mana should have been depleted, right? How can he still have mana, and cast so many protective spells? Incredible." Another person exclaimed, "What kind of power is that? I never expected that. Not only did he not have both legs broken, but he also managed to drive away that monster." Their original script was that Hawthorne, after being tripped up by their little spell, was unable to protect himself anymore, and then had his legs cut off by that monster, losing too much blood and falling into a near-death state. Then, the 2 of them step forward again, immobilize the monster, and extend an olive branch to him. In this way, the desperate human will inevitably make a deal with himself. Even though Hawthorne blocked the first attack from the monster, it didn't matter to the 2 demon descendants. The boy's leg was already injured and he couldn't run anymore, so he would definitely not be able to withstand the next attack. However, what they never expected was that with the power of that miraculous milky white energy, this human actually achieved an ultimate counterattack. Now, on the contrary, it is he who is chasing after that monster. This is incredible. Looking down, Hawthorne, who had recovered, unexpectedly began to chase after the monster. One of the tall and thin individuals slowly said, "What do you think, Regilas? Should we continue?" Another demon descendant pondered for a moment, nodded, and said, "Continue. You go and restrain that monster. I will go persuade him to sign a contract with us. Even if we can't reach an agreement, capturing the monster will surely please Lord Mephistopheles." "Good." 2 guys then set off and chased after Yuta in the distance. On the ground, 2 minutes have passed. Hawthorne used a healing technique on himself, healing his wounds, and then began to pursue as well. His speed is faster than the current Yuta, but he has to carefully observe the traces left by Yuta's sprint, fearing that he might chase the wrong path and never find her again. It should be very close now. Yuta is very weak at the moment and cannot run fast, so she definitely won't be able to go far. He thought this way, turned a corner, and then was pleasantly surprised to see, in the distance, the massive body of Yuta slowly wriggling. Obviously, she didn't have much strength left to continue running. "Very good. Finally, you are mine." Thinking this way, he continued to move forward. But soon after, a curse came from the sky, "Hold monster." Instantly, Yuta's massive body was frozen in place and no longer moved. Hawthorne was taken aback, and then a tall, thin figure wearing a black windbreaker descended from the sky and landed beside him. "Phew, luckily I caught up." Then, he turned his head and looked at Hawthorne, with a gentle smile on his face. "You've worked hard, young man, to be able to hold this guy for so long. You have protected the residents of Liberport. You are the hero of the entire city. I truly admire this sense of justice. Young man, what is your name?" A series of continuous praises left Hawthorne extremely astonished. Listening to his tone, no matter how you think, he sounds like a high-ranking figure in the port. Why are the security officers in Le Havre so efficient today? Aren't they usually late to the scene after everything has settled? Is it because the commotion tonight was really too big that even his friends couldn't sit still and rushed over so quickly? Sigh. So, how do I tame Yuta? He speculated thousands of possibilities in his mind, but he did not let his guard down. He slightly bowed, showing respect, and said, "I am Nigel Hawthorne. May I ask who you are?" The thin and tall figure in front continued in a gentle tone, "I am Regilas, a mage from the Blackstaff Tower. Don't be afraid, I am here specifically to handle this matter." Speaking, he also pointed to the logo embroidered on his windbreaker, attempting to appease Hawthorne with these words. "Black Cane Tower, the mage council that guards the entire Liber port. They do not engage in combat unless dealing with major public crises or foreign invasions. No one knows the exact number of them. It is said that there are only 500 people inside, but each one of them is at least proficient in 3-ring spells and has many specialized skills in super magic. They are definitely powerful elite mages. The members of this organization are rarely seen by ordinary people, but there is no doubt that they are a highly respected positive force in the port of Le Havre. Changed to a normal young wizard apprentice, hearing this would have been excited beyond control. However, upon hearing the name Rigolas, Hawthorne's pupils suddenly contracted. I'm boiling, it's indeed fake. I told you, it's impossible for the efficiency of handling public safety incidents in Port La Belle to be this high. Rigolas, the Archduke of Hell's 8th layer, also known as Mephistopheles' apostle in the material world, is a powerful and disgustingly vile demon offspring. This guy likes to use some small actions to disrupt players' missions. When the situation deteriorates to an irreparable point, he suddenly appears to help you out, while extorting a large sum from you. Uninformed new players even have to thank him. In that case, just now I was tripped over. It definitely wasn't an accident, it must have been him. Unlucky, how did I run into this guy? Chapter 45, Bluffing. Hawthorne's face immediately became alert, silently taking a step back. While carefully choosing his words, he replied, "Thank you, esteemed magician, for coming to my rescue. I am honored to have your appreciation." Rigolas' eyes flickered, and with his extensive experience, he naturally accurately captured the alertness on Hawthorne's face. Immediately, he couldn't help but feel a little confused. What's going on? Why is this little guy becoming cautious after I finished introducing myself? My name cannot be revealed, so... This person is actually not honest, with a criminal record, so that's why they reacted like this? Oh, this is my own miscalculation. Ha, but this way, it's actually better. Although this means that we cannot immediately have him under our control tonight, in the long run, he seems to be a more suitable candidate. He smiled slightly at the corner of his mouth, then continued to play his original role, speaking kindly to him. It seems like you've been injured. Come, let me take a look. Fortunately, I happen to know some healing spells. Saying that, he took a step forward and was about to grab Hawthorne's wrist. Hawthorne instinctively took a step back, his brain working rapidly. He didn't understand what this demon kin was up to, but he was well aware that no matter what this guy was planning, he was no match for him. Do not let him touch himself. But I still can't beat him. Once I take action, I will definitely be at a disadvantage, so... Scare him. With this thought, Hawthorne quickly stopped and then suddenly shouted angrily, "People from the 8th level, are you all so blind?" In an instant, Regila's body stiffened, and he looked at him with a look of astonishment and uncertainty. What did you say? He never expected that his absolutely confidential true identity would be exposed by the other party in one breath. Who is he? Where did he get the information from? Hawthorne stared at Regila's intently, and seeing the usually smiling demon so discomposed, he understood that his first step plan had already succeeded. So next, it's time to redouble our efforts and scare him away. You should understand what I mean. He deliberately elongated his tone and calmly said to the demon in front of him, disguised as a human, "Stop it, Regilas. If you don't want your master to be scolded and embarrassed in front of the other 7 dukes, then, today, you just go back and focus on doing your job properly. I can handle everything that happened tonight as if nothing happened." He skillfully enticed, his forehead covered in cold sweat. And across from him, Regila's forehead was also covered in sweat. Who is he? Why does he know these things? Could it be that he is actually Lord Atlantis, or some kind of special agent sent by a Grand Duke to the material world? No, it shouldn't. His eyes gazed at Hawthorne's face, immediately overturning his own speculation. Whose secret agent would send someone so good-looking, that wherever they go, they would always be the center of attention in the crowd? Not only that, but also... His overheated brain gradually calmed down and began to analyze the situation in front of him meticulously and carefully. No, this guy. He is bluffing. Which special agent sent by the grand public to the material world would have such weak true strength? He had previously fought fiercely with a low-level human warrior and was chased to the brink of life and death by a crazed monster. This guy must be bluffing. He had a suspicion in his heart, but he didn't dare to be sure. His eyes shimmered with a magical glow as he gazed at Hawthorne, then slowly said, "I see, thank you for the reminder, I will leave immediately. However, why is the adult alone and in danger today? It is not safe at the moment. Perhaps, I can accompany the adult as a bodyguard." Hawthorne's eyebrows suddenly furrowed. "Is this something you can ask?" Saying this, his brain quickly turned, knowing that this bit of information alone wouldn't scare him, so he racked his brains and searched for the secrets of the Devil Dukes, trying to find one or two that he could use to scare him away. "I have no ill intentions towards your master, Regilas, but I warn you, put away your curiosity and do not invest too much energy in matters that you cannot handle." He continued, "After all, you wouldn't want your master's plan to build a dam on the river Styx in the first level of the 9 hells to be known by Zariel, would you?" This sentence was like a thunderclap, instantly blanking Regila's mind. He took a step back, opened his mouth, but it felt as if a pair of large hands were choking his neck, preventing him from uttering a single word. "You? How did you know about the master's plan to build a dam in the underworld river? The river Styx, since the birth of the world, has flowed through all realms. If the deceased of any realm is not guided by a deity to enter the divine realm they believe in, their souls will be cleansed of their memories here and then decide whether to be reincarnated or descend into hell. There are a huge number of souls in this river. Naturally, for demons who crave soul power, this is an absolutely rich mine. Building a dam in the Styx is equivalent to robbing the core interests of other layers of demon lords, so this matter must be kept secret, even he only recently found out." Why? Why would he know? Is he really someone important? But why is his strength so weak, and he doesn't even have a bodyguard by his side? No, why? Who is he exactly? I thought he was just an ordinary mortal, but I didn't expect him to be involved in so many troubles. His heart was in chaos, his expression uncertain. As the direct subordinate of the Devil Duke, who ruled the 8th level of the 9-layered hell, Regilas was undoubtedly a clever person. However, the smarter one is, the more suspicious they become, especially after hearing the explosive information revealed by Hawthorne. His sharp mind couldn't help but spin rapidly, giving rise to all sorts of strange associations in his mind. According to his statement, he may not be my colleague, but he knows the master's secret plan. Could it be, he is a spy for the Queen of Desire? Is it her new face first? He was unsure, his heart in chaos, when suddenly a voice echoed in his mind, "Regilas, what are you hesitating for? Never mind what he said, since his identity has been exposed, just go ahead and capture him directly, then interrogate him to find out the truth, and then brainwash him to erase this memory, isn't that enough?" Regilas's heart skipped a beat. This suggestion could be described as audacious. However, looking at Hawthorne, who was alone and extremely weak in front of him, this audacious idea couldn't help but grow wildly in his heart. "I am for the purpose of protecting secrets, even if I have made mistakes, my intentions are good, so De Gong will not blame me. Since that's the case, then." He trembled and reached out a hand, preparing to cast a spell on Hawthorne. Across the street, when he saw that he still refused to back down, Hawthorne's heart jumped into his throat. As he raised his hand, his pupils instantly shrank to the size of pinholes. And at this moment, countless black mists suddenly emerged from the ground. Then, one by one, sticky, thick, and outrageously large ink-green tentacles rose from the black mist and instantly wrapped around Regila's body. Dark energy surged from those tentacles, sucking away the demonic power and vitality of this demon descendant, causing him to let out a painful roar.